but how does one even start investing when they can't even save $1,000?
So if you want to know how to do it, you can learn how to do it, and then you can make it. And like I said, not on a TikTok video, through a TikTok video, because there's a lot of misinformation, but by actually learning it, teaching it to yourself from reliable sources, or getting financial advice so someone can help you. And through that process, you will also learn and be able to get on that journey of figuring things out yourself more and more, empowering yourself with the knowledge.
Welcome everybody back to another exciting show of the About That Wallet podcast, where I have the awesome opportunity to bring on Alissa Maizes. She has been an amazing person. I met her on, Clubhouse, so long ago. It felt like years ago, but it seems like she's part of the family. And Alissa is actually a licensed attorney and a registered investment advisor, providing young adults with financial advice and a plan that embraces the life they want. How you doing today, Alissa?
I'm great. How about you? I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's been quite some time, and I know we've been crossing paths from time to time. And one of the things that I do like about you is that you're very consistent, your message is concise, and that you're really out there to help out people. So can you actually just bring up this whole notion of what is it that kind of gets you like amped up about helping people in finances?
So the thing that I really like about it is that I feel that everyone should be able to have the same advantages, the same knowledge, the same guidance. And so that's really what excites me. And so whether you're living paycheck to paycheck and trying to eliminate debt, or you're a millionaire, having the knowledge and having an expert, help you along the way really can make a big difference, because no one's an expert at everything, including myself. So even though I feel very confident about giving financial advice, I also put together a team of people because I know that there are different experts in different fields. So it's important to acknowledge that if someone tells you they know everything, or they seem to have an answer for everything, especially off the cuff, I would definitely pause and think about whether that's even possible or the best fit, as opposed to someone who stays in their lane, and they might have knowledge and be able to detect issues, but they know how to put that team together for you so you do have the best financial advice.
That is an amazing mission that you have there. Because, here we're talking about the young adults, but you also name your company Amplify My Wealth. So it's almost like the person, when they say it out loud, it's like they given ownership to themselves. Can you explain that a little bit?
So it's funny because that's exactly what I was thinking when I chose it. And I didn't even know where my financial literacy, as far as spreading the information for free, I had no idea where I was going with that part. I knew that I wanted to be able to give people advice as a registered investment advisor, a financial advisor that was licensed, but I didn't even realize what I'd be doing beyond that, just providing lots of free information. And I wanted people exactly to, when they referred to Amplify My Wealth, they'd hear my, meaning theirs, and feel that connection that they can increase their wealth. And for everyone, it's a different thing, right? It's, everyone has a different place where they are on their road to wealth. And so that's what I like about too. It's not, how to be a millionaire. It's about where you are in your life and how to get there.
Yeah, because, you have two young adults of your own. And, you really want to help the young people. So how can the young adults actually start thinking about their retirement now? Like, what questions should they be asking themselves?
So I think first of all, it's important to ask yourself, do you know what you want it to look like? I always ask people, what do you value? What do you value most? And usually focus on, if you could list four things, sometimes it's, less, sometimes it's more, but four things ideally that you really value. And then to really focus on what are the opportunities to, plan for your future, to plan for retirement. It's hard sometimes for a younger person to really wrap their head around it. They want to have fun and live their life now. And it's not necessarily a mindset. It's kind of a weird thing. I'm young. What do I have to worry about? I'll deal with this later. But there's such a great advantage. So one of the things, I have one on my website, or there are plenty of them available, is go to a calculator that shows you how you could compound your money, how you could actually invest less money now, the sooner you do it. So overall, the amount would be less, but if you do it sooner, it can grow more than if you invest twice as much, for instance, and you delay it. So if you're thinking, wait, you just need to, if you want, while you're listening to this, go to my website or go to investor.gov. My website's Amplify My Wealth. Get on that calculator and put in those numbers, and you can switch the numbers around and see. I'm sure, is that something you like doing, Anthony? I know it's not something you do every day, but you're like, why didn't someone show this to me sooner? So that is eye-opening. Understanding your values is important because it helps you focus on your goals and what you really want from your life. How much do you need for retirement is such a tricky question, especially the younger you are. But at some point there's a chance you might not be able to work, or you might not want to work, or maybe not as much. So the sooner you do it, the bigger impact you can have on your wealth, and also all those tax advantaged opportunities.
Yes.
I love that, Anthony.
Yes, I do. So one of the things about when it comes to investment, because you mentioned that, even us as adults, and you always see this on the news, like that's the reason why we have market news and Bloomberg radio, just talk about different stocks. So how do you help guide a young person to pick a particular stock, or do they go with ETFs or mutual funds? Like what should one look into?
So it's really important to have a diversified portfolio of investments. So this way, if a certain sector in the market goes up or down, you are diversified. You don't feel the down as much as people who invest, for instance, in individual stocks. And it's definitely harder to create a diversified portfolio with individual stocks. And I don't think making things more complicated for yourself will yield greater wealth. It doesn't mean, obviously, if you could select a stock that goes up more than everything else, like there are exceptions, but overall, people don't beat the market, even though they think they can. And so I think it's really important to have a diversified portfolio. When I give advice and I put together a plan for someone, I put together a diversified portfolio with ETFs and mutual funds. I feel for most younger people that they really resonate with the ETFs because they trade similar to stocks where the price is fluctuating throughout the day. And so there's that connection. But also know, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, whoa, what a snooze fest. Like, it doesn't need to be exciting. What's exciting is the long-term investing and seeing your money grow. It's actually pretty simple to put together a portfolio, generally speaking. There are things to consider. So definitely your time horizon, your risk tolerance, and there are other things along the way to consider. as well, which is why it makes it a little bit easier when you do have guidance from a professional than doing on your own. There's less of a chance that you have financial regrets. It doesn't mean you can't learn to do it, but definitely proceed with caution and don't take advice from TikTok videos of you should buy this or invest this way. Certainly, I have clients that have individual stocks as well, but my advice, although I will include that when I do my analysis and give my investment advice, I personally don't recommend individual stocks. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing to do. It's what I decided to do with my firm. So that's why I do it that way, because I think simplifying your finances and focusing on your day-to-day spending and the life you want to live will get you better results than focusing on, oh my gosh, how's this stock doing? Should I trade it? It went down. Doing the research on your own. There are people who run the ETFs and they run the mutual funds. And if they're actively managed, those people this is their full-time job. And if they're index funds, they're following an index. So there's not, they just follow if there's a change, if a company leaves or joins the index, or if there's balancing things they have to take care of. But that's their full-time job. And chances are, buying and selling stocks is not your full-time job.
Right. So, because a lot of the things that get missed inside the when picking ETFs or such big managed portfolios is that they come with fees. And usually a lot of people miss out on some of these fees. What are the fees that we should be looking into? Even the young adults as well should be looking into when they're selecting their ETFs or so.
So there are definitely fees that are built into it, as well as there are taxable consequences because of buying and selling. So if your investments, for instance, are in a brokerage account that's not a qualified retirement or an HSA, some sort of qualified tax advantaged account, then it's much better, for instance, to have index funds because they're less frequently traded. So you'll have less taxable, fewer taxable consequences throughout the year as compared to an actively managed fund. So that's one thing to think of. And also there are places that are known for low cost. So some examples are Fidelity or Vanguard, and they also provide a lot of information and assistance on their website. It doesn't mean you don't have to do your due diligence, but generally speaking, we know that these are, if you're going, and it's important, if you're going to invest in, say, Fidelity or Vanguard, invest in their mutual funds and ETFs. Those are always going to be the ones with the lowest fees and lowest cost. Same with, with either Vanguard or Fidelity, as opposed to some other companies that are charging more, but you can actually see, you can look it up. So I think it's important to compare. So if you want to, one thing to do is you can look at Vanguard and Fidelity, look at the S&P 500 index, look at the companies they hold, because I know some people, they're like, but I want to own individual stocks. Those companies, a lot of those are the companies you might want to be owning. So you can find your companies in funds that are already existing, but you get the diversity. So if that dream, company that you want to own is in there, you can definitely own it, but then you have the diversity built into it. But definitely, I agree with you. It's important. And I myself, when I help clients, I focus on Fidelity and Vanguard, low cost, and not, going there and then say, oh, I'm going to get Vanguard and my Fidelity or vice versa. Like, it just doesn't make sense to do that to me, because it's going to be less expensive if you get their brand. Think of it as it's not generic, but it's their own brand. It's like if you go to Whole Foods, which can be super expensive, but you get the 365 brand, it's going to be less expensive than getting the brand name tomato sauce that you really love.
Yeah, that 50 cents versus that 90 cents is a big difference.
Exactly. And then the thing is, back to that compound calculator,
Hmm.
take that difference, right? The 50 to the 90. So if there's a 40-cent difference and you're taking 40 cents and you're contributing and investing and getting a return, that compounds too. So while it might not seem like a lot, it adds up.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that, you know, when it comes to getting out of debt or actually being able and being comfortable to even start investing, because I was just looking at an article on CNBC where they're saying 56% of the Americans can't cover $1,000 emergency expense with their savings. So, yet alone, I know we're talking about investing, but how does one even start investing when they can't even save $1,000?
So that's a great question. So I'll give you an example. For instance, I definitely think, obviously, if you're eliminating debt and it's about 30% on your credit card, as an example, the sooner you eliminate, you are getting an immediate return on investment. And not only are you getting that immediate return on investment, it's also building your confidence. You feel better about your finances. Just the emotional part alone is at least as valuable as the amount of money that you're saving. Because I've seen the people transform their whole mindset around just having a plan, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, at the very least, and this is just to put out there, I am not giving advice. I'm sharing information because I don't know anyone's finances who's listening. So I can't personalize the advice to any specific person without that knowledge. But if you have an employer, always check to see if there's a match. Some people don't even realize there's a match. So basically, that means if you contribute to their retirement account, they will match up to a certain amount. And that's free money. It's essentially part of your compensation. You might not see it that way because you're thinking, I make X amount of dollars an hour, or I make this amount a year. But when you are taking a job, you're not just getting that hourly or that salary rate, you're also getting the other benefits, and those have value too. So definitely, if there are any accounts where they match, sometimes they even match health savings accounts, like you wouldn't believe. And a lot of times people just don't know. And so it's really important to look at all your benefits and figure out what makes the most sense, just because everyone talks about a certain thing. Like, for instance, short-term disability. A lot of times they will sell you short-term disability, and people think, well, that I'm going to get that over the match if I can't afford both. But in reality, a lot of times the match makes more sense if you have an emergency fund, or especially if you have an emergency fund, because if you have an emergency fund to cover the amount of time for your short-term disability, then you don't need that insurance necessarily, as long as you're comfortable. It's a personal thing. If you're comfortable thinking, I could cover my expenses for X amount of time. And traditionally, people, I'm just going to put out there, because people say you should have at least 3 months. And I think it's really guided because of disability. But in reality, while it is 90 days until the disability kicks in, so that's usually the case, they don't pay you until the end of the month. So it's actually a 4-month. So my feeling is you should at least have 4 months of expenses. But if you have 4 months or more, then why give up the free money for your retirement? Because so many people don't plan for retirement, and it's overwhelming the older you get, and when you realize that you could have done it sooner. So you can invest within those accounts. So that's the thing that I think people also overlook too. So definitely look at your employer first. And it is true that I know some people say you can't become a 401k millionaire, but that is a big lie. Or some people say, wealthy people don't invest in anything that starts with a 4. I have actually heard that. It was shocking to me. That's a lie. And a lot of people actually become millionaires because it becomes part of their habit. It's coming straight out of their paycheck. They're dollar cost averaging. So they're getting all different prices in the things they're investing in. You could create a diversified portfolio. And if you don't know how to, you feel more comfortable, there are target funds as well. So you could pick a year that you target to use the money and do that too. So I think there's such a great opportunity with that employer match. And ideally, the dream would be to max it out. I know initially people are like, what? But yes, if you max it out, you get used to it and it's normal to you. And now you know that you're always maxing it out. It doesn't mean that will be enough for the life that you want to live when you retire. You have to figure that out, but you have a good jump start. It is growing in a tax advantaged account. So you literally are not paying taxes through, while you're investing, and it's growing. So I think it's a great way to start. So to answer your question, yes, the debt, obviously, when it's high interest, you get the biggest return on investment. But I think it's important to do both, because that delay of the compounding, it's like balancing the compounding of the interest on your credit card and the compounding in I get it, but it's also what you feel most comfortable with. For some people, they might say, something, this is my plan. This is when the credit card will be paid off. But for some people, it could take a really long time, and it's their mindset. What is going to be better and resonate with you better so you have greater success?
How did you get to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I always loved reading about finances as a kid. I didn't realize at the time that was not what everyone was doing. I just did my own thing. I did a lot of other things that most kids were doing that I was growing up with, like going to Manhattan, going out late at night, all of those fun things. But then I also loved reading about finances. So whether it was in the New York Times or Kiplinger, I have fond memories of going to the corner candy store near my bus stop and buying Kiplinger. And I just loved reading about it. I was always someone who liked practical knowledge, things that I could relate to that somehow I could use in my own life. And so I was always focused on that. And just that was my thing. And then through the years, my friends and family knew that about me and knew that I would know the latest tax advantaged account or tax advantaged move. And so they would ask me questions all the time. And at times where family and friends were having challenges with their finances, they would ask my advice also. And I decided that while I could help all the people I knew, I wanted to be able to help more people in a way that wasn't being done as much. And so I decided the only way to really do that is to get licensed. And so I already had a license as an attorney because I went to law school after college, and I still have the license, but I don't practice law.
Okay.
But I do like using my legal lens, because you can't erase the way you think about things after you've been an attorney for so long and just having that education. So I use my legal as well as my financial lens to look at different things. And that's probably one of the reasons why I love tax advantage moves, because you don't have to have a lot of money to make money by just making the right moves with your money. It's definitely investing for long-term growth is important, but it's also looking at things from the tax advantage of things. There are things that you could do that people just overlook doing. And I don't mean, having a business and going out to lunch all the time. Because, right? Because whether it is, a legal deduction or not, a lot of times people are spending money and depleting their business and then the potential for the business to grow as well as their own personal finances to grow, thinking, oh, I could write this off. I could write this off. Certainly, if it's a need for your business and you're seeing a return on investment from it and it makes sense and you can afford it, great. But when I say tax advantage, I mean that you don't need to spend money to get those advantages, and it actually helps you increase your wealth, which to me is mind-blowing, right? That people say, oh, it's for the wealthy. No, it's for the people who know how to do it. So if you want to know how to do it, you can learn how to do it, and then you can make it. And like I said, not on a TikTok video, through a TikTok video, because there's a lot of misinformation, but by actually learning it, teaching it to yourself from reliable sources, or getting financial advice so someone can help you. And through that process, you will also learn and be able to get on that journey of figuring things out yourself more and more, empowering yourself with the knowledge.
Nice. So can you give us one tax advantage that we can take, one tax thing that we can do to take advantage of it?
So I'll say one thing, just to go back to the employer retirement account. For instance, a traditional 401k is an account where you get a tax advantage with your contributions. So you are able to put in pre-tax dollars. So you're not taxed on that money when you put it in. So it's from your income, it goes in there. And then when you take the distributions one day, and let's assume it's going to be for qualified retirement reasons, where you won't get a penalty, because they are not meant to be taken loans from your 401k. People do it and it usually derails their finances. So try to avoid that. We're talking about leaving it in there to grow. That is the best thing to do in that 401k. That is what it's meant for, because we need money in the future. We know we will. And so you need to pay tax on it when you take it out, and it's income tax. So we can't predict what your income tax will be at that point. And there are required minimum distributions, which mean at a certain age, and this is another thing, they change these rules all the time, they will calculate for you how much you have to take every year, because the IRS wants your money, and it's true.
It's what their money.
They want their money. That's how they make everything go. So they are not going to let you sit there with that money, not pay taxes, not use it, because, you don't have to use it, because they want you to pay tax on it. Like, they're giving you a gift for it to grow, but you will pay that income tax. So usually people are paying a lower income tax rate, but it varies. And so that's what happens with the 401k in general. So now I'm going to share two tax advantage moves. One is, when you are ready to take those distributions, if you are someone who gives to charity, it could be $1,000 a year, or it could be 500. Maybe you give to your church or your synagogue. Maybe you give to Save the Whales, feed homeless people, whatever it is that you do. If you're getting money from that 401k, you're going to pay tax if you take the distribution and then potentially contribute the money, but you can get a tax advantage by not doing it that way, and instead figure out where are you giving money to charity, and reach out to Vanguard or Fidelity and direct them to take your 401k distribution and give it directly to the nonprofit. And then you don't pay taxes on the money. So instead of paying the tax and then having less money, now it goes directly there and you still get to support the nonprofit. So it is something that's frequently overlooked. And for people who realize they don't need the money, or they don't need all of it, it's a great opportunity to not pay the taxes and give it back to your community. The second part of the 401k is, you know what I'm going to say, Anthony, the Roth, right?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. So The Roth, and this is really for someone if, maybe they don't have the credit card debt, they don't, they just want their money to grow and never pay tax on it again. And by the way, not be forced to take a required minimum distribution so it could continue growing. And they can even pass on to their legacy. Although at that point, there are rules about how long their legacy could hold on to it. But the Roth is very different. You pay your taxes now, and it's after tax dollars. So you're not going to get the tax advantage now, but being that there are young adults listening, for you, if this makes financial sense, you pay the taxes now and you don't pay taxes on it as long as you do a qualified withdrawal from the account. So I'm not going to go into, there's so many parameters into that part of it, but this is a huge tax advantage because the younger you are, that money, if you have a well-diversified portfolio and you're dollar cost averaging into that Roth, it will continue to grow, and then to not pay taxes on it later after decades of growth. So go back to that compound calculator, put those numbers in and see where it could be. Do you want to pay tax on that? Or do you want to pay tax now if you can afford it? And so that to me is an amazing tax advantage. And now it used to be you couldn't get your matches that way, but now you can even do it with your matches from your employer. You can direct it to a Roth. So I love that new, I think it's part of the Secure Act 2.0. Yeah. It actually started this year and I was all over that. I love that.
Nice. Yeah, because the Roth has been an interesting process. And I think for those of you who work for the government, they recently released the Roth TSP. So you can go ahead on and start contributing to your Roth as well, which I think is great. And I think at the time of this recording, the max is around 6,500, unless it went up. But I have to double check. So, but I think last I checked, it was around 6,500 that you can contribute at this time. So you can actually look at the IRS.gov to go ahead on and check out those numbers. And like I said, what we're providing you guys here are different strategies and also some of the resources that you can go to actually educate yourself as well. Not just hear what we say, but actually look at it in the black and white. So one of the things I do want to touch on before we start talking about you a little bit more is the thing about life insurance. How does that actually play in our retirement? Because we don't know when we're going to die, but we know we're going to die. It's just that to support those, because I'm tired of seeing all these GoFundMe pages for things of people passing away. And what are your thoughts on like researching and also getting the information that's needed for a life insurance policy?
So with life insurance, what I usually do is I advise with respect to term life insurance. So when you're a young adult, some things to consider is whether there are people that are relying on you financially. And if so, how are they going to be if something happens to you, you're no longer there for your loved ones? And also the other way around, if you're relying on someone else, do they have adequate life insurance so you are taken care of if they pass? So that's the first thing to figure out. And if so, what would your needs be? So for instance, if someone has a house and let's say their parents are living in the house and their mortgage is $500,000, and what's going to happen to their parents if they pass away? So it's part of it is, definitely covering the mortgage, but are there other expenses of the house itself? For instance, the upkeep of the house, just paying off the house and giving it to someone who doesn't have the money to take care of the house is not going to be okay, right? Their expenses. How old is that parent? How many years are they likely to live? And what are they going to need? It's definitely multifaceted. I don't think it's an easy thing to research, but it is important to definitely put those pieces together to figure out how much coverage you need. Certainly the same thing if you're starting a family. for someone, if something were to happen to you or the person that you're starting the family with, what do you need? So if one of you passes away or both of you, for your kids to be okay, for your partner to be okay. So it's looking at those things. I personally prefer term life because most people are not in a position, first of all, to spend money on more expensive life insurance, although it's quote unquote permanent, and as opposed to term, which lasts a certain term. So if it's 30 years, as soon as those 30 years are up, you don't have coverage. But if you put together a plan properly for growing your wealth, the idea is to eventually, you've paid off the home or most of the home, you've saved some money. So it's a type of self-insurance that you create through building your wealth. So when the term expires, you're not thinking, oh goodness, now what are we going to do? Yeah. Some people overlook that part of, if you do term or any insurance, but let's talk about term first. You definitely need to be building wealth. So when that term ends, if someone's still relying on you, there's enough money to take care of them. The other side is I'm just going to say the permanent type of insurance. I find that, first of all, it is a lot more expensive. The people who sell it are making a large commission immediately. So you're paying for that. And it often prevents people from doing other things with their money, like funding their 401k. It also creates a mindset because a lot of people who sell it tell you, well, you buy this life insurance, you can use it for investments and all these other things. And what happens is the moment you get that life insurance, it is not going to, let's say it's worth a certain amount of money. It isn't worth it that first day. It takes time for it to be there. So if you really care about your loved ones being protected, term life, it is that day. So if I buy a policy for $1 million right now, and by the way, the younger you are, it is so much more reasonable. It is no, it's very inexpensive term life insurance when you're young. And the thing is, you could get 30-year term. I have met with people where they had 20-year term. It wasn't enough. And then in their 50s, they needed to get term. And that it went from hundreds of dollars a year to $10,000 a year, because you're more likely to have health issues then. You're closer to potentially passing away. There are so many different things. And so doing it when you're young, also doing it outside your employer. If you're working somewhere and you get their life insurance, if they're covering it, take it, right? Definitely take it. But if you get it yourself outside of your job, it stays with you. If you leave your job, that's a group policy with that employer. And when you leave, you're uninsured. So your family is no longer protected. And the other thing is, usually they don't let you insure adequately to protect your loved ones. So definitely outside the employer, term life is really what makes sense for the majority of people. There are sometimes estate planning situations, or if you get long-term care, which I'm guessing most of your audience, maybe they have family that needs long-term care, but they're not. But there are long-term care policies that are coupled with life insurance. So if you never use the long-term care, you get a life insurance payment for your family instead. Generally, yeah. So generally speaking, you could tell I'm all term.
So now we're going to start talking about you now. So, Alissa, we want to learn about your future. So what are the skills or habits that you feel that you need to take yourself to the next level?
That's such a great question. So something that I love doing is I love focusing on short-term goals. And so I will look at, let's say, a date that I have in the near future, and I will decide what I'm going to accomplish in that time frame and take actionable steps. I find a lot of people tend to set these huge goals and it's overwhelming. So it's, taking little bites of things instead of biting off too much and then having a hard time reaching those goals. So some of the things I plan on doing, but I really don't know the order. Well, one of them is I've already completed all the requirements for the education for CFP, but I have not, you have to have someone attest to your hours. And so it's not always that easy unless you're working for someone else's firm, and then you have to do it the way they do it. And I really had my own idea of what I wanted to do. So I do have someone who is attesting to it. So I should have enough hours by the end of this year. Then, so I'm excited. And I will then, make plans to take the CFP exam since I completed the educational requirements. But I also am balancing that with loving to spread information and helping my clients. So I will see where it takes me as far as how I'm going to balance everything. Because part of why what's important to me and my time is putting at least 100% to my clients, which they can attest to. I'm always there for whatever they need. But it's also when I could be with my family that I'm available for them. So my son, for instance, is graduating from college, and he'll have a little window of, just over a month where he's not working before he starts his job. And I want to be available for that. So, it's balancing those things. I do have, some other things I think of, but I'm not putting out there yet because I'm not sure which I'm going to pursue. But thank you for the thoughtful question.
You're welcome. Because I know like you're a minimalist, and it is actually so cool that I can only imagine what you think of like my little bookshelf here. It's like, so much.
Not at all.
Awesome. Because, being a minimalist, it does help you clear your mind a lot when I minimalize things and just kind of clear up the clutter. And I do like that you're a minimalist. So you're the first one I actually met. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I like it too, because it decreases the chance that you're going to spend money on things that you really don't need or will really get joy from that makes it worthwhile. So putting my mindset there is good. It aligns with my values. I'd much rather spend money on a good meal with my family or friends or experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like if I just had one room just to kind of throw my bags down and just go out and enjoy the day, I could live with that. As long as I got my podcast gear too. So, I gotta do this.
Right. You'll need a loft so you could have like your bed up there, your podcast underneath, and then, maybe a little coat thing so you could throw something on there. Right?
So true. Yes. Okay. So is there anything you want to leave everybody with before we go to the final 4 questions?
Just to get started now, it's important to do something now, whatever it is, really to get to know your finances, figure out your expenses by looking at your last 3 months of credit card and bank statements, and also figure out your net worth by taking your assets. So what you own, it could be, if you have a 401k, you have money in the bank, whatever it is, and subtract your debt from that. And while I realize I have seen it myself where it could be very overwhelming for people to see that, it is usually that eye-opening moment that could be the moment that you look back on and changed your life because you looked at it instead of looking away.
Awesome. All righty. You ready for the final 4 questions?
I can't wait.
All righty. Number 1, What does wealth mean to you?
So wealth means to me choices. It means that I can make choices in what I do in my life. And I love that. Like, I think everyone should be entitled to have the information in their arsenal so they can accumulate wealth and make the choices so they can live the life that they want to live.
Like that. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
So here we go, right? On the record of About the Wallet. I would say the worst money mistake, but there's also a good side of it too. The good side is that ever since my kids were born, I had already recognized that sometimes you get a gift here or there, and usually kids spend it because parents let them spend it. The reality is when they first get a little gift of money, the parents are still in control of it, but they, for some reason, just, oh, you can buy something, as if your kid really needs something. Like, certainly if you have a child who needs something, that's a whole different thing, and you can't afford it. And now you have money to get something you need. But for those other things where usually even parents who need things that they can't afford, they usually let their kids buy, whatever the latest fad is. So I decided before my kids were born that I didn't want to do that. And so the money was put in initially in a bank account. So my kids could have it set aside, and it was earmarked for college. That was what I decided. And so if I had it all to do again, it did eventually get invested. I initially did not want to invest it because I recognized the fact that it was because of gifts that they received. And I felt a little, uncomfortable that I would invest their gifts and the market could go down. Not that it wouldn't be there for college, but I just felt like they weren't old enough to make the decision. And I just, whatever. I decided initially not to invest it. Eventually, I decided that I should invest it. I wish I had done it sooner. That is my mistake, is that had I done it sooner, it would have grown substantially more. But like I said, I felt uneasy about, because I knew these were their gifts and not for me. But that being said, I did invest it, and I'm happy that I set it aside for college as opposed to not setting it aside for college, for sure.
Number 3, what is your favorite financial or non-financial book?
So I'm going to share 2 books because I think they are great companions, especially for young adults. One of the books, and you definitely audiobooks through the library. Don't think that all this is about like spending more money. It's definitely not. It's about making the most of the money that you do have. Okay. So I just want to put that out there. So you can get this on audiobook through your library. The book Stacked by Joe Saul-Sehy and Emily Guy Birkin. He is the founder of the Stacking Benjamins podcast, so some people might be familiar with him already from that. But his book and audiobook, he's really fun. So listening to the audiobook could be lots of fun because he has a great personality. So if that's your thing, and you could do it in the car, folding your laundry, whatever, do it that way. The other book that I love is The Next Millionaire Next Door. There's also A Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mind. There's a whole bunch of them. But the reason why I say The Next Millionaire Next Door, because it's a more recent book, so it might be more relatable for some people. And it is by Sarah Stanley Fallow and Thomas Stanley. And it really gives you the idea of the way millionaires really live. And I know that when I read it, it definitely made me feel better about the way I was living my life, because sometimes it's hard to tune out all the stuff going on around you, especially with social media. But if your idea is to grow wealth, you should know the way millionaires actually live. They aren't getting flashy things. They're driving cars until they're into the ground. They are spending money on education, not on flashy things. And for instance, from that minimalistic thing, that we were talking about, they have wardrobes that are very simple. So everything coordinates together. It doesn't mean you can't have something fashionable, but make that the thing that changes the look of what you already have. So you're not always spending money that you could better, provide for your family and your future.
Wow. Yeah, I might have to actually get that book. I never heard of The Next Millionaire Next Door. That's really cool. Thanks. So number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
So there are a few dishes I like, but the one I want to share, I love sharing because everyone has always liked it when I made it. And it's super simple and it's not expensive. So it is pasta with garlic and olive oil, which you're thinking, really? That's it? But it's so simple that I'm going to even tell you, you literally boil your pasta. Don't, make it a little al dente, a little tough, not tough, but not cooked all the way. Mm-hmm. And you're going to strain it, but reserve about a cup of the water from the pasta. And then you're going to take minced garlic, 6 to 8 cloves, mince it up into little pieces. You're going to put it in the pan that you were just in with about a quarter. If you like more oil, it could be a half a cup, but a quarter of a cup is usually fine on a low light. Saute that garlic up. And then you're going to add the pasta in with that water. So it cooks the pasta more. And it's that simple. If you have parsley, you can mince it up and sprinkle on top so it looks a little different. If you like a certain vegetable like peas, you can make that on the side and toss it in. But what I like about it is so yummy and it's not expensive. And I think a lot of people think fast food, oh, they have this really good deal. But this is probably a lot less expensive and it tastes so good. And if you have a little Parmesan cheese, that's also a nice add-on. But you can definitely just do the pasta and the garlic and the olive oil and you've got a meal. So it's one of those things where you could come home and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I better not order. And again, that's going to be like $30 for like a $5 sandwich. Instead, always keep that pasta and the garlic and olive oil, and you always have a meal available for you.
Awesome. I might have to try that. I might post it up on my Instagram a little later when I try it. I have plenty of pasta. I just didn't know what to put on it because I always looking for like at least some type of tomato sauce or try to look for like a buttercream sauce. But I never thought about just throwing oil. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I love garlic. So for me, I do like 12 cloves, but I realize a lot of people might not like that. So that's why I said 6 to 8 is fine. I actually got it from, and it's also quick to make. I think that's the other thing too. It's quick, it's inexpensive, but once you master it, it's gourmet too. I mean, you go to a restaurant, a fine restaurant, they will sell you this very dish for over $20.
Wow.
And then you tip and tax and.
Yeah, I'll be eating that at home.
Why not do gourmet at home?
Yeah, that's going to be your next segment of your show.
Exactly.
All right. So let's see. The last question of the show, which is, where could people find out more about you?
So you could find me on social media at amplifymywealth.com. Actually, that's my website. Sorry, my website, amplifymywealth.com, as well as I'm most active on Instagram at amplifymywealth. I have a goal setting guide. So you can, request the guide and you will receive it by email, as well as some other resources. And the guide really helps you take some steps to, there are worksheets to accompany it, to create different things from, setting your goals and looking at your expenses and your net worth. And it has all different tools in there, and it's absolutely free. I also have a calculator that I put together myself that is a goal setting calculator, and it has a built-in compound calculator. And so it looks at, for instance, if you select a goal and there's a certain dollar amount you need to, save in order to reach that goal, you're then able to put it in the calculator to, put in different numbers to see if you're making this percentage and you're saving this amount, how long will it take to get to your goal? So that is another thing. You can also sign up for my newsletter. I love I don't inundate people with emails. So my newsletter is once a month. This month, because it was tax season, I did send an extra email for that. But generally speaking, it's only once a month. And I always provide at least one downloadable that will help you on your financial journey. And it's free. It's something I include things that I provide for my own clients. So why not get it for free? And you can also look on my About page, and there are links to articles that I contributed my insights for. And also on my blog page, which the most obvious thing I overlooked talking about are my blogs. So you can definitely look at my blogs. It's one of the goals that I set for myself this year after the year started, that I would do one blog a week. And so I'm entering week 12 soon, and I'm going to continue that through the year. So definitely jump in, and you could check weekly and check that out as well. And I've brought myself back into Clubhouse. So I'm sometimes there, but I would say Instagram and my website are the best way to connect.
Awesome. All right, everybody. If there's one thing that you got out of this show, please make sure you go ahead on and like and leave a comment on whatever platform that you're on listening to this particular show, whether it's YouTube, not Instagram, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. I get to see those comments, and I would love to actually start reading some of those comments on my live shows. So I look forward to hearing from you all, and make sure you guys give a shout out to Alissa. Okay. All right, everybody. Y'all be safe. I'm out. Peace.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.